From a professional soccer career to becoming a driving force in the mortgage industry, Brian Covey has shown what it takes to find your competitive edge. Get off the sidelines and get in the game. Find your competitive edge with Brian Covey.
What's happening, guys, and welcome back to another edition of Finding Your Competitive Edge. So today, our guest Ryan Tseko is not only someone who has mastered the art of flying big bad planes in the Gulf Streams and the big ones. You probably know him from his pilot career, his cool videos that he shares, that you'll see him landing a plane, flying a plane somewhere really, really special. But you might also know him because he's working with somebody you've been paying attention at all. You know who Grant Cardone is? He is the EVP of Cardone Capital. So not only are we going to break down some real estate investing, how he got into the business of real estate, but how do you take a career that many of us have been in, or you might be in today, and then go start branching out and investing in real estate? Most of us don't know how. You've been taught the wrong things. So we're going to break down the myths. We're going to talk about reality and how you can get in the game and win. So let's jump right into it. Ryan, welcome, my friend.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. And it's really scary too. A lot of people, they're like, hey, how do you transition? It's scary for everybody. You just got to, you got to figure it out, get on the right team, and you just got to do it.
Yeah. Well, we all have these stories, right? And I always think about, like, my wife and I buying our first house when we were engaged. Yep. We were in a small apartment and we didn't really have enough down payment, but we scraped it up, right? And it's like rates were over 7 at that time too. And it's like, man, you know what? I know buying is better than renting, and I need to have some type of asset. We need to get cash flow. But I look back at your story when you were still a pilot. You were buying your first house in 2008, and you had some buddies like rent out to some rooms and stuff. Is that how you got into it?
Yeah. So I've been a part of real estate since I was a very young guy. My mentor, my first mentor, my uncle, he was a builder in Scottsdale, Arizona. And so he was building homes and he was just selling them, right? He always wanted them as investments, but he always needed the money to go and do the next deal or two. And I didn't have any money, right? So I'm 15, 16 years old. He's like, hey, if you work on the job site, I'll get you your first car. So that's what I did. And I looked at him, I was 17 years old, and he's like, hey, what do you want to do next? I'm like, well, I want to go buy real estate. He's like, son, you don't have any money. And I was like, well, what do you mean? He's like, my money is not your money. So you need to figure out what you want to do. And so it's interesting how this all works. My uncle actually wanted to be a commercial airline pilot when he was growing up. He took off. He got scared. He couldn't find the airport. He's like, I can't do this because I got a family. I'm 17 years old. I love cars. I love racing. I'm into dirt bikes and go-karts. And like, I'm that kind of person, right? And he bought a Cessna because he wanted to get back into flying. And so he's like, hey, well, how about you come fly with me? And it wasn't really a thing yet, right? And we start flying this little Cessna 175 to like Heber City and Scottsdale and Mesa and to Park City and all these places. And I looked at him one day, I was like, man, I'm doing all these jobs. If I go and be a pilot, could I actually get paid to do this? And he's like, yeah, you can get paid 80, 100, 120, 150 plus. And I'm like, oh, this is what I want to do. Yeah. Because I knew that eventually I'd get back into real estate, but I needed to figure out how to make money and get really good at something. And honestly, being a pilot is sexy. Being a pilot, you think about it, you got, your suit on, you're flying a $40 million jet, you got great people around you, you got flight attendants, you're traveling the world, and you get jump seat across the globe. So as a young man, that was really exciting for me. And so that's all I did for 3 years. And so at the age of 21, I got hired on as a pilot. But when I was fast forward to 24, 25, that's when 2008, 2009 happened. And, we were seeing things at 50, 60% discount in Arizona. And I actually went and bought my first home, turned it into a pilot crash pad, rented out in 3 bedrooms, had 1,200, living in the master, that whole house hacking piece. And I got hooked. I was like, if I can get 400 off this one, I don't want to live with the people, but if I can go and find, because I didn't know what 4plexes were. I didn't know what 8plexes were. I mean, most people don't. That's right. But I started really studying, and I started really learning, like, oh, here are the benefits of real estate. And I just got hooked. I got really, really hooked. I ended up with 21 units. And I looked up, I was 30 years old. I'm like, what's next?
Well, I love the story because a lot of people probably can relate to trying to get their first home. Maybe they're trying to get their home today. And I love that you came in, obviously, very different market. But even though you bought at a discount, there were probably so many people that were fear-based that did not make a decision, that they didn't move in and do anything. And I love how you just said, almost like riding the dirt bikes and that need for adrenaline and speed. You're like, okay, we're going to go this way. We're going to do that. So you got the 21 units. And I love this part because you start to accumulate these units and things. You said there's got to be something bigger. And I think for a lot of people, they're probably listening going, yeah, Ryan, like maybe I have a little bit of a portfolio, or maybe I've got some rental properties, but how do you make the step from that to go bigger? What did that start to look like for you? Did you start to call people? Did you start to reach out? Like, what was that journey like?
I started finding a lot of the roadblocks. And what I mean by that is when you buy a fourplex, or you buy a threeplex, or you get, single family, or you buy a fourplex on, seller financing, and then you go get master lease options, like these are different ways to get creative, because and eventually you run out of money. Yeah. I've been studying how to raise money since I was 26 years old, and back then you only had Reg D506B. Now we've got Reg D506C, which you can go crowdfund on social media, Instagram, Facebook, you name it. But back then, I always thought it was crazy that you couldn't put up a billboard and say, hey, I got this great deal, come invest with me. So I found myself where I had to get creative and go and, try to find these real estate deals with my own money. And as a pilot, I was able to get, 10, 20, 30, 40 grand, save it each year. But I said, what's next? Because I always knew that I didn't want to be a real estate property manager. And that's what I actually found myself being when I was, owning 21 units. And I always knew that apartments were, because I was studying apartments, like I was studying all the greats, and I was 30 years old, and Grant Cardone was coming out on YouTube, and he was starting to teach real estate and multifamily. And I was like, man, and he mentioned one day, he's like, hey, I'm buying an airplane. I was like, man, what if I can go fly his airplane and work in his real estate department? I was like, that would be badass. Yeah. And so that's what I did. I said, what's next at 30 years old? Packed all my stuff in Scottsdale, moved to Florida, joined Grant's team. And, it didn't start out where we are today, but I used my skills as a pilot. I was with Grant every single day. We had bought a deal. We started with our first deal, actually, it was $20 million. It was, a couple hundred units in Port St. Lucie. We raised $6 million. The debt was 14. And we said, okay, if we could do one, we could do two. If we could do two, we could do three. And now we're on fund 23. So I think it was like the order of things. People are like, well, how did that all happen? It all happened because not only is Grant a badass, but I was envisioning when I was 25 and 26 years old, like, how can I be a part of a team? How can I do bigger deals? How can I? Because a lot of us face, when you call the bank, you're like, I'd like to get a loan on a 30-unit deal. They're like, does it meet the DSCR? You're like, DSC who? You're like, what are you talking about, DSCR? And clearly, like when I did that call, I blew it, right? I was like, I didn't know what I was even talking about. I didn't know the nomenclature. I didn't know the definitions. I didn't know all that stuff. And so I really got serious. I got very, very serious. And I wanted to take multifamily. I wanted to take real estate as a profession, because that was always the end result. I was using the pilot to add skills to get on a team that was going to 10x levels. But I kind of did it where, they both worked really well together.
Hey guys, it's Brian here. I hope you are enjoying the show. By the way, if you're an entrepreneur or a solopreneur looking to grow your personal brand, make a bigger impact, maybe increase your leads and grow your revenue, let's help you get started today by connecting up with my friends over at the Brand Builders Group. You've heard me talk about them, but if you're new here, this is definitely the first step to get you started in turning your reputation into revenue. Head over to freebrandcall.com/Brian Covey. Again, to set up your free brand call, go to freebrandcall.com/Brian Covey to set up a free strategy call with one of the team at Brand Builders, and they will dive into your specific goals for how you want to grow your personal brand. I can't wait to hear how it goes. And I love that too, because you took the value that you add, right? And so everybody that's listening out there, think about what is the value and the skill set that you bring. You're never too young, I believe that. You probably don't even realize the value and what your skills offer, that someone has a gap in their sales team. Pilot, obviously that's very unique, but you have skill sets today and unique opportunities exist if you just go for them. And I love, as you're going through the story, Ryan, I was looking at this, and I remember you were talking about, you took your real estate portfolio that you had built up and talked about around 400,000. And that was one of the first deals you did. And you talked about within 3 years, you and Grant turned that into over $1 million.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, well, look, Brian, because when you realize that you want to do something bigger, you look back and you realize, like, I was at lunch with Grant. We were flying. We were at an event. And I started showing him, because I was like, Grant, give me your recommendation. Like, what would you do? Like, I started showing him my fourplexes and my single family homes. And he's like, Ryan, he kind of starts chuckling, he's like, Ryan, all that stuff is junk. He's like, it's all garbage. He's like, I've been there, done that, because they were built in 1970. And I mean, I had some nice homes, but overarchingly, they were not the quality that we invest in today, right? Yeah. And when he said that, I was kind of taken back. I was like, whoa, what do you mean? I'm like, tell me more. Because, you're taken back, and then you got to realize, you're like, okay, this guy's more successful than me. What would you do, Grant?
That's right.
And I'd always wanted to invest with Grant. I just didn't have a lot of money. And so he's like, what I would do is I would package all those together. You have 21 units, package them all together and try to sell them as a portfolio. But if you can't do that, go and sell them all one off. Don't worry about the taxes. How much equity do you have? I was like, I got about 500 grand in equity in these deals. And so the next day I went back and I called Eddie, the real estate agent. I said, sell them all. I said, without any hesitation, I said, sell them all. And I went and sold them all. And I ended up with 500 grand. I paid the tax of 100. Now I have 400 free and clear, $100,000. And I said, Grant, will you let me invest with you? And he's like, yeah, I'll put you in this deal. It's in Nashville, Tennessee, where you're from. It's 826 units. He had already bought the deal. And he let me in at his basis. Like, this is what we do at Cardone Capital. We buy the deal. We let people in at the basis. We give them an equity stake. They're an LP. Grant was making decisions, all that stuff, but it was a bigger deal. So I went from 100% ownership to like 2 or 3, I don't know, something small. I was scared. I mean, I'm not going to lie to people and say, I'm all, like, I was like, oh man, I'm like giving up all the stuff that I worked my whole life for to go and invest in something bigger. But I just knew that like where my deals sat versus where these deals sat, there was more exponential growth on 826 units rather than 21. So I gave him the full 400, and I was getting some cash flow, and we were doing some renovations, and Nashville was a great market. We had a guy come in, and we bought it for like 63 million. He came in and offered us 93 million bucks. It's a $30 million split. Since I'm a partner in the deal, when he decided, hey, we're going to sell this, my 400 grand within 36 months turned from 400 to 1.12, or what? It was a little over $1.1 million.
Nice.
And Grant, I say this story all the time. Grant made me a millionaire through his real estate deals and through investing with them. And so that was like a huge boost of confidence for me. I was like, okay, I'm gonna take that million. I'm not gonna go spend it. I'm gonna take that million and go and invest it in 456 units with Grant in Austin, Texas, which, that's what I did. And that million's probably now worth, I don't know, 2 or 3 million bucks. So I just keep doing that, and I keep investing. And when you get around the right people and you start hearing the truth and you start seeing what they're doing and how they operate, that's really like, I was solving for myself with Cardone Capital at first, meaning that I wanted to invest with Grant, but then all these business owners and entrepreneurs and people saw what Grant was doing and like, well, hey, I've got $1 million, I've got 500, I got 250. And so we started raising our funds actually with our power base. Like, we didn't have this big machine at first. We had a power base of people. We were doing fund 1, fund 2, fund 3, and then we started growing and scaling it because there was a demand for it.
Yeah. Well, I love that you went through the series and how you've rolled it over into different investments and things. And I'd love for you to break down this, because people are probably listening and they're like, okay, for our real estate investors, people that already own some property, what was really the decision outside of Grant saying, hey, just go sell it? Was there something in the numbers, or was there something that someone should be looking for in maybe real estate they own today to say, you know what, maybe there's another real estate deal like you did, moving to multifamily or something, yep, that they should be looking for? Was there anything in the numbers or the data that you said, okay, yeah, this just makes sense, even though Grant says it makes sense, right? Like, we're going to trust that, but we're also going to verify it.
Well, the thing you have to verify is you have to verify what's the actual equity in the deal, and then what's your cash on cash. I think people overlook that so much. Where, look, it just as a simple investor, what's your cash on your equity, not the down payment, but your equity. When these deals, maybe I put 25 or 35 or 40. I think I had, I don't know, maybe call it 200 grand invested in these deals, but I had 500 grand. I paid the tax. Now I have 400 grand. What's my real cash on cash? And I'm also doing the work too.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that people don't take into consideration is like, I get paid more than $10 or 20 bucks an hour, but I was doing a $10 and $20 an hour job. As an airline pilot, I was getting paid 80, 100, 120, and on my days off, I'm actually working for free, and I'm saying I'm getting a 8 or 10 or 12% return. It's like, when you take into account the time, energy, and effort, people were calling me like I didn't have a team. Like, I am the only person. And I don't want Donna, like I don't want to be a real estate owner. I want to be a real estate investor. Yes. And that was really where the light bulb started clicking in my head, where I was like, but Bri guy, you know this, man, like when you're ready for a mentor, when you're ready for people to start stepping in your life, you can hear the truth from miles away. And what Grant was saying is the shit that I already knew, like I already wanted it. I was already receiving it. Like my spirit had already received it. And I'm not getting like all in like next level and spiritual being, but I'm just saying like most people know they're set out for something bigger. Most people know there's something bigger out there and something better. Like being a real estate mogul does not mean owning 4 units or 8 units or 30 units and managing them yourself. Being a real estate investor and actually giving back means that you're controlling and operating, 100, 500, 10,000, 100,000. Our targets are to own and control 100,000 units. That's what I wanted to be a part of. I didn't want to be a part of 21.
And people look at that, and I love that you break this down, because I even have friends today, right? And they reach out like, but I'm managing like this 64 unit complex over here in this multifamily apartment, and they're doing all those jobs that you're talking about, and you're like, right. You've now diluted all of this income potential and the things that you could do. So break this down, because obviously Cardone Capital is probably the largest that I know of, like close to 4 billion in assets now.
Yeah, we've raised over 1.1 billion in equity, and our assets, like our properties, are over 4 billion. It's like 4.2, 4.3 billion. And we built this all with no institutions, by the way, like no institutions. We're all, we call them retail investors, but it's really just you and me investing in the deals, right? It's just direct to the investor with no middleman. People know what we're doing, but a lot of people still haven't caught on. Like you can invest directly, not a platform. You can invest directly with Grant, Cardone Capital, a syndicator, a sponsor who's doing the deals directly. I mean, this is game changing.
Yeah. Well, most people don't have access to that, right? So you think about what you said is like, yeah, you could play over here in 20, maybe 100 units, or you can go over here and get into thousands of units and be part of those deals. And just like the example you gave of yours, like turning 400 into 1.1 or so, and then rolling into the next one. Yeah, that turns into 2 or 3.
Yep.
Break it down for people that may not be as familiar with Cardone Capital, or, I think people see sometimes it used to just be accredited. Now it's both. And you got options out there for that everyday investor, right? Maybe they're a pilot, maybe they're in mortgage, or they're in pharmaceutical sales, whatever it is. But they're like, you know what? I've got some money that I'd like to invest. Can you break that down for people and some of the advantages and what they should be looking at?
Well, it's very simple. We provide deals. Like we'll go out and we'll find the deal. So we'll go and find the deal. We'll, whatever deals that are on the market with brokers, and like we're doing big deals now, right? We're not just doing 50 and 100 units. We're doing, I got a current deal right now. It's 500 units. It's a big group who's selling it. Got another deal that's, close to 250 units. And so what we're doing is we're going out and we're pretty much packaging these deals with. Right now, we're actually looking to buy cash because the finance market is out of whack for sure. Yeah. But we go and we find the deals. We do due diligence. We make sure that the numbers are accurate. We go and check the financials. We go and have the relationships. We go and do the broker calls. We go and do all the stuff that it takes to actually put a deal together. Not to mention the reputation. Grant's been doing this for 35 years. Like we use his balance sheet. We use his cash. He'll close on the deal. He gets people in at the same cost that we put this thing together at. He'll allow LPs to come in and participate in these deals. So, to break it down very simple, is we package the deal together, LPs come in, limited partners, and you're able to invest. If you're non-accredited, the minimum is $5,000. If you're accredited, the minimum is $100,000, meaning that either you make over $200,000 a year or you don't make over $200,000 a year. Either way, you guys skin this cat. If you guys look at me, I was a commercial airline pilot making $80,000, $100,000, $120,000. I was $120,000. I was technically non-accredited. So I don't want people to think of like accredited or non-accredited as a bad word. All it is just your CPA or your attorney writes you a letter saying you're either accredited or you're not, right? But the deals are the same. The accredited get paid on a monthly basis, 80-20 split, 80% goes to them, 20% goes up, or non-accredited gets paid out quarterly. But it's, you say, hey, I've got $5,000, $500,000, 5 million, or whatever is in between. And you go and, go to Cardone Capital, you see the deals that we're doing. You can invest in the deal, you can invest in the fund, and you put your money to work and you get the distribution. And by the way, you get all the benefits. You get the cash flow on the accredited, you get the depreciation, you get the leverage if we use it. And then when the appreciation happens over time, so it's like I'll end with this. It's almost like doing the deal yourself. You get all the benefits. You're just paying Cardone Capital the 20%, which probably will outweigh you doing it by yourself regardless. I always say, for me, this is my opinion, I can either go do deals myself or I can go do deals with Grant. I personally think that I'll make more money investing with Grant than I would by myself.
Yeah. When I look at it this way too, it's like, we've got some groups that we work with, and I love this setup because it helps people minimize the risk side, the downside of making the mistakes that they've just never seen deals this size, or like you said, not running their numbers correctly and making an error and a mistake that they look back and always think about. Even like mentors and people that you mentioned earlier, which I'd love to dive into, is, and those mentors are there to help you avoid the roadblocks and the pitfalls that they had. And right. That is what accelerates your growth. And so many people are just holding off. So I love that you broke down the deals, because I think for many people, look, if you're listening to this, my advice would be, it's not financial advice, but it's just explore these options, right, for yourself and do your due diligence and find out what's out there, because we have people reaching out. Ryan, you mentioned interest rates today and how banks and all that. I'm like, so many people are afraid to do anything in real estate. Well, okay, there are other options. You don't have to just go buy a single family home or an investment property. Like, think bigger, think broader. That's your only takeaway. Dive into it. And I'd love for you to talk about, you've had Grant in your corner, right? And I think for a lot of people out there, they're like, wow, they would pay, and they do pay a lot of money. A lot of money. And just be around someone that has been through what he's been through and what's there. Talk to me about the importance of a mentor, because it seems like even through your story today, as you're sharing it, it's like you sought out, really, you wanted to be around somebody, Grant, who you could learn from, be mentored, and really be that apprentice to go, man, I'm going to learn so much more from him than I could ever make trying to build myself up in a career. So talk to me about the mentor side and how that's accelerated your growth. Because I look back, and even as I was prepping for this, your growth over even 5 to 10 years is a lot.
It's a rocket ship. Yeah. I think there's two different types of people. There's the people who want to get better, which I am in that bucket. And there's the people who want to coast. I've always been in the bucket where I want to be a rocket ship. And you've seen the growth that I've had, and it's directly due to who I'm surrounded by. It's Grant, it's Elena, it's the people that are on the team. And it's also about getting in the game where it's a bigger game, right? But I've had a mentor since the very beginning. Even when I was a pilot, there was a lot of pilots who were like, oh, I don't want to fly with this guy because he's hard, or he's this, or he wants things done the right way. You had mentioned it earlier, you can learn a lot from people who are already playing on a bigger game. And you don't learn from books. Like, you don't learn from reading their books. You don't learn from reading this. You actually learn by them putting you in the arena. Yeah. It's like watching a soccer game. You're going to learn from being in the stadium, or are you going to learn by being on the field? Well, in my viewpoint, you always learn from being on the field. And so Grant's put me in the game, on the field, making plays, and he's coached me for the last 9 years. We had this joke with Elena. I think I was telling you or somebody else. We used to tell Elena, we spend more time together, Grant and I, than him and Elena, because I was flying, we were doing deals, we were traveling the world, we were doing this, we were doing deals, we were doing this, we're doing it. Like you start spending a lot of time with people, and it becomes to the point where you can't put a number, you can't put a price tag on that. And I encourage people, don't do this yourself. It's going to take you so much time and energy and effort to make something small, versus getting on a team where you could actually become a part of something really, really big. The top people at Facebook, the top 10, they wouldn't trade that in. They're the top 10 people at Facebook, and it's like from 1 to 10, they're really, really well off. And I think partnerships and collaborations are overlooked in our society, because people are like, well, I want to be an entrepreneur. And what ends up happening is you actually become a solopreneur. And why do we want to? We're seeing in the apartment space that people want to live together. So why do you not want to work together? Why do you want to do it by yourself? Well, you don't. The marketing is to the point where it's like, don't have a boss. No. You are going to have a boss regardless of what you do. Grant Cardone has a boss. It's his investors. Grant Cardone has a boss. It's his family. Great, like this whole misconception of be the boss. Okay. What does that even mean? If you're going to be the boss, be the boss, but have other bosses, and really, really put yourself in this position where it's something massive, where it's something big. So I've had a mentor my whole life. That's why I am sitting where I am today, is because I'm like a carburetor on a motorcycle. It's like the jets, when you have a carburetor and you're trying to get more speed, when you go and tweak that jet, that carburetor, to let more fuel in, let more air in, it's very, very, sometimes it's big, but sometimes it's small. But then you get that peak performance where you're like, okay, I'm operating at a completely different level because I've always had somebody tapping on my shoulder. Hey, no, little left. Hey, no, little right. Hey, get in there, do that hard call this, do this, get that deal, go do this, find that due diligence. Like, I've learned the real estate game, Bry Guy. I like that name for you, Bry Guy.
It's a new one. Like, okay.
I've learned the real estate game.
It.
Yeah. I've learned the real estate game not by books, but by experiences, doing deals, getting in deals, getting my hands dirty, leasing apartments, knowing all the people on site, knowing the regional managers, knowing the VPs, knowing the banking relationships, knowing how to understand and create the financial models, understanding Excel, understanding how to build a team. Like, you just have to do that if you want to build a company that can grow and scale.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And for people out there, I mean, we talk about this a lot, right, on the show. And I think the consistent theme, like, I've yet to meet somebody successful, Ryan, at like what we would say is success in all areas of their life, that has not had, and probably still currently has, a mentor, coach, someone that's guiding them, like you talked about. Like, right. Just yet to find them. So I always say, when success leaves clues like that, it's the obvious thing to get in the game. So I'd love to go back when you first started working with Grant. I love these. What was one of the lessons that stood out where maybe he taught you early on, maybe not about real estate specifically, but maybe just a life lesson or something where he's like, Ryan, here's some knowledge I'm going to drop on you?
There's been a lot of life lessons through experiences with Grant. You know, one of the biggest ones is, always promote, right? Grant's, in my opinion, Grant's one of the biggest promoters in the world. And he's done that because he has not closed the curtain. He's actually opened the curtain. And, I've learned a lot through just watching Grant, so how he promotes. Grant's a hard worker, and he's a smart worker, and he's got a great team around him. But Grant always continues to show up. So like, even like when you're doing events and you're going to the next thing, you're going to be like, okay, where is this guy going to show up? Yeah. He's always there. He's always on time. He's always like respectful, and he's always appreciative of collaborations and partnerships in his team members, right? So, that's one thing that I've learned from Grant is it's like, look, never underestimate anybody. Always be present time, meaning like, hey, who's doing this? Who's here? Who's this? What's next? Like who are your team members? Having a pulse on everything and really having targets. So, having targets is one of them, but also tracking and making sure that people are hitting their targets, making sure you're hitting your targets, and then reevaluating them. I mean, I can go on for hours and hours and hours about, how, because I've studied Grant. Brian, I've studied Grant for 9 years. Like my goal was to work for Grant, to study Grant, to become his partner, and to build something really, really big. So setting targets, tracking them for not only yourself, but your team members. But, as far as real estate, one of the biggest lessons and the biggest things that I've learned from him in the real estate game is that you have to sometimes do things that are uncomfortable. And what I mean by that is you have to do a lot of things that are uncomfortable. Maybe having that hard conversation with a broker, maybe having that hard conversation with an investor saying, hey, look, maybe this isn't the right fit for you, because if you are going to be this type of person, this is a 10-year deal. And being upfront and honest with people, saying, hey, broker, you told me the numbers were this, the numbers aren't that. And so the investors are expecting this. So all of this stuff is interchangeable and interrelatable. And man, I've got so many lessons from them, but it's just really being ethical and honest and doing the right things, not just for yourself, but for the investors, because that gives you power. At the end of the day, when you end that call, when you do the right thing, when you do like these bigger things, you're like, that was the right thing to do. And so a lot of us were like, oh, well, don't say anything, or, oh, don't do that because you don't want to ruffle the feathers. No. You have to be bold, and you have to do the right thing, because when you're bold, people will follow. And when you're bold and you're doing the right things, like I negotiate attorneys' bills on every single deal. Like, this is the type of work ethic and the amount of attention to detail that Grant has always had from day one that is now instilled into me. Yeah. And now I have to instill it into the team. Because in order to grow and scale, you have to grow and scale. You have to build up team members. And so I'll just end with this. Grant has never wanted to be the guy, the only guy. Grant has wanted to be the guy, but he wants to have other guys and gals and people around him who are also leaders. And in order to lead, you have to follow. And in order to follow, you have to lead. In order to be a great leader, you have to have the experiences to actually be able to relate. And I'm not just talking about theory. I'm talking about going and leasing. I'm talking about going and negotiating. I'm talking about going and doing all the things that come with real estate and finance to be in order to say, hey, analysts, this is what I've done. This is what you did. Let's marry these two together because this is the outcome we're trying to achieve. If you don't have the experience, you can't do that.
Yeah, man. And I love that you brought in leadership to it, because to me, that's the overarching thing. And it's almost like a through line of look at all the different companies, obviously at 10X and what Grant's built. And then I look at what your journey has been. And as you guys continue to expand, like leadership, your capacity is going to be something that dictates how far and how fast you guys can go. And for people listening out there, man, I hope you grab this. As I've got too many friends that try to do this, and you mentioned it, solopreneur, right? They just want to do it by themselves. They never bring other leaders along. They never build up leaders. We always say you need to have leaders that create other leaders that create other leaders. Like this thing needs to continually perpetuate through. And one thing I would love to know from you as you've gone through this, Ryan, is like now that you're in the seat, the portfolio is growing, you have brand recognition, you have all these things going through. What's probably for you one of the biggest challenges you're facing right now in your own journey?
Look, I think of every challenge as an opportunity to grow and scale. As you continue to grow a portfolio, team members become very important. One of the biggest challenges in any business, growing any business, number one, is the target's too small, right? Because people are like, oh, if I could just get 30 employees, or if I could just get, I call them team members, right? If I could just get 60, or if I could just get 100. The goal and vision is to have 5,000 team members where you have leaders, where you have real people, where you have a real company. Like if you don't want to be the top, just because you're not hanging out with the right people who have the confidence in you, if we're not going to do this, somebody else is going to, right? So the challenge is, look, you can't just delegate recruiting. You can't just delegate different things. You have to go in. I have to go in and recruit off LinkedIn. I have to go in and do these interviews. I have to go in and say, hey, look, these are the types of team members that we demand, that we want, that we're going to go and get. It's not just based off of a budget. It's based off of how do we all work together? How do we all like working together? One of the biggest challenges in the airline was hiring people, was recruiting people. And when I was a recruiter, because I worked my way up in the airlines, like I was 21 years old to the age of 30. I did, first officer, captain, FFDO, which is the flight deck training, where I was on Fox last night. I did check airman. I actually worked in, I was a part of the FAA where I was giving people type ratings. I was a part of management. Like people don't know about this because I don't really talk about it, but I ran that career really, really hard. Because I'm all in. Like, people on this thing could see the energy, the excitement, I'm always all in because I've never worked a day in my life. Like, I've never worked a day in my life because I enjoy what I'm doing. But as a recruiter, I always ask people, who are you? Like, who are you? Because your resume is great, but who are you? Because can we go on a trip for 4 days, sit neck and neck with each other? The flight deck door is locked. There's nobody else coming in. Do I want to be around that person for 4 days? Do I want to be around that person for 40 days? Do I want to be around that person for 40 years or 4 years? Like it's all in a matter of scale, right? But what we're really building here is like, I'm not looking to grow this to 25,000 units. I'm looking to grow this to 100,000 units with Grant. And the biggest challenge has been team members. Now we're starting to get great team members. And so it's always going to be a challenge of like, okay, who's doing what? Who's on first? Who's on second? Who do we need to scale? Who do we need to scale? Who do we need to scale? Because it's always who, what, who, what, who, what. Like you just got to figure out what cycle you're in on these break points to figure out how you can go from 5 to 10, 10 to 15, 15 to 20, 20 to 25. Everything in life has been done already. Yeah. Like I don't reinvent the wheel. Grant doesn't reinvent the wheel. Brandon Dawson doesn't reinvent the wheel. Bry Guy doesn't reinvent the wheel. You just have to get inside the tracks where you can learn the wheel and play the wheel in the game a lot quicker. So that way you don't get frustrated and burned out. People talk about burnout all the time. It's like, you ain't burned out. You're just in the wrong, you're just in that wrong track.
Yeah. Man, I love that because we hear that quite often, especially right now in mortgage, real estate, financial services. People are like, rates, this, and all the reasons why things are difficult. I love your take on the current market, right? Because you mentioned earlier you're having to use cash more, right? So that's one of the trends there. We're seeing obviously not much refinance activity, people afraid to buy. What are some other trends you're seeing? And where are the opportunities for that average person? Where should they be looking to put their money?
Well, the market has completely changed in the last 18 to 24 months, and we've actually been on the sidelines, being very patient with raising capital and getting ready to execute on big trophy assets and big quality deals. We're finding right now that the lower tier mom and pop, there's still a lot of emotion on it, right? The higher tier where we play it's just cut and dry, folks. It's like we have an asset, we need to sell it. What is it worth? Clear the market, move on. And that's the game, and that's the thing that we play in right now. So we're actively working on deals. I've got 2 deals under contract and going through due diligence where we're going to present them to the Cardone Capital family, the investors, and we're going to buy these deals probably cash because the debt market has gone from 4% to 6% to 7%. And we feel like if we can go and buy these cash, we can refinance them in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, whenever the market settles down. But we think there's huge opportunity. I mean, when people are not buying, that is when you want to buy. Let me repeat that. When people are not buying, when the institutions, when the big banks, when all the people are not buying, who are usually our competitors, that's when you want to buy because you're able to get deals at a discount. And so we think that below replacement costs, great value, great rents, still a great story, holding them for 5, 7, 10, 12, 15 years, that's the way to really invest and also really create wealth. Cardone Capital was created to create wealth. It wasn't created to fix and flip. It was created to create wealth for your family. So that way you don't have to work in the business. You can allocate capital to the business, and then you can still focus on your main business.
I love you breaking it down too, because I think for a lot of people out there, we see this quite a bit is like, okay, the rates are here, so I'm out of the market. I can't really acquire more real estate. And hopefully you're listening today and you're going, hold on, there is another way. And if you haven't explored this, you need to. We'll include the links and all the stuff to Ryan and the team at Cardone Capital, because look, I've found that, and people always ask, I'm sure they ask you this, Ryan. It's like, hey man, what do you wish you knew 10 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever it is? And it's like, man, I wish I had invested faster, stronger, and had more opportunities like this where I go, okay, I don't have to go buy a deal by myself. I don't have to manage a deal by myself. Like, these are the opportunities that exist today, and you nailed it. I believe this. Buffett has said it. Like, when everybody else is afraid and they're not buying, man, that is the time. That is the time to come in and figure out how you get in.
Well, Brian, let me just add one thing to that too. We've all been told that we should own 100% of the deal. We've all been told to do it yourself. We've all been told to play small. We've all been told to go get a job. We've all been told to do what I wish I would have known, when I was 18, 19, 20 years old, that I have a lot of data inside of my smart brain up here. I think I'm smart. I actually know I'm smart because I know that I'm not smart. And I know that I need to surround myself with great people. Look, my superpower is the team. Hands down. I got great team members. I'm building one of the best teams in the world. Grant Cardone is our fearless leader, but I'm also a leader that understands the importance of a team, and that Grant, Elena, Ryan, the remaining team can't build this monster company unless we have really, really smart people around us. But we're all told to go to school and get a good job and go and work for somebody else. And I hope people can hear this out. And I know this trend is already caught on, and I know we're already all listening. The goal is to get equity. The goal is to get money to invest, so that way your principal is never spent on the things that are marketed. You can go and buy all those things, but just buy them in the correct order. You can go and get loans if you're getting a loan to invest in your education. I had a $140,000 loan for my pilot education because I knew that I was going to use that to become a very, very valuable ninja to Grant Cardone, to build a real estate company, to one day I could have my own jet. And I hope people dream. I hope people can believe in themselves and say, hey, look, I'm going to invest in myself because I want to learn. I'm going to invest in myself, even though my parents and my friends and everybody else are telling me, hey, like the little crabs in the bucket, like you can't do that. I can do this. I'm going to do this. Everybody laughed at me, Bry Guy. They were saying, you're going to be a pilot. Oh, good luck, good luck. It's like, guys, I was 21 years old. I was flying a $40 million jet. The chief pilot loved me. Why? Because I said, every day I'm here to work. I didn't call in sick one day for 9 years. Riddle me that. I mean, people can talk, but go back to the track record of who are you? Are you calling in sick? Are you stepping up? Are you showing up every day? And you're going to find that if you're doing these little different outpoints, just correct them. Get around the people who aren't doing that. Because guys, all it really is it's the belief in you. It's the belief in your team. It's the belief in the people around you. And you can achieve what you believe.
I love that, man. That is one that resonates with me because it doesn't matter where you are, and you hit this, is who you're around, you start to realize, we call them standards, right? And you get around different people and they have different standards, and you're like,
I love that. Yep.
that's just not acceptable over here, right? Like,
yeah. What are you doing? Like, yeah.
And you either assimilate to it or not. And even with college soccer, or now with our team as well, there's certain standards, and people do weed out, right? Like they self-select out, but other people self-select in. And I love that you said that, because when you get around people like that, you do find that it challenges you, raises the bar. And I love that you said that. I mean, 9 years, not to miss a day. Think about how many people in the society today that it's just acceptable to, like, my feelings, man, my feelings today. I don't feel like working.
Right.
And that consistent through line as well is that people could consistently show up and compete and get on the field. Isn't it interesting that they are overnight successes? They have wins, like all these things people call overnight, when it's like, no, that was 9 years of showing up and not missing a day. That's 10 years of making sure that you were steadfast and staying on the path. So,
well, we had this thing. Yeah, we had this thing. I'm sorry to cut you off because I know you wanted. I love the story piece. I just wanted to share this really quick too, because I when I was at the 10X Growth Con with Grant last year, on the field, Tom Brady, he was one of our speakers, and I think this is a really important message, because he got up there and he's like, look, man, it is about the team. Like, yeah, I showed up, and yeah, I had a great coach, and he was tapping me, go left, go right, go right, go right. And he said, you know what? The thing about me, and I really resonated with this, is why I'm sharing this, is he's like, it wasn't really about me letting myself down or me failing for Ryan or for Tom Brady or whatever it is. It was, I didn't want to let my team down. Like, I didn't want to let the other people down. I didn't want to fail, because I knew that the people were counting on me. And that's what I know Grant and myself and the team, that's what I have. Like, I don't want to fail for Ryan. I don't want to fail. I don't want to let my team down. Like, everybody's counting on me, to do the right thing. And I think that so many times people are like, oh, it's all about winning. It's about winning, and it's about doing the right thing, but it's also about just being so consistent. Because if you look at the track record of every man, of every woman, there's always been a lot of these like little steps in these failures and wins and failures and wins. But it all adds up to, it's not an overnight success. It's like, Grant Cardone's now doing these big events, but he's done 8,000 small events. He's doing all these massive like audiences, but he did 8 people for a long time. He's doing all these like really big, like he's got his own jet now, but he flew, 2 million miles on American. You know what I mean? Like these are just the context relating, things that people miss, because, life is not about Instagram. Life is not about social media. Life is about putting in the time, being around the right people, and then finding yourself actually being really successful.
Yeah, man. I love that you share those stories, because I think a lot of us can relate to them in certain capacities, right? And we're like, okay, that's me here. But for a lot of people, the consistency is not there. And one of my coaches shares this all the time. Like, once you attach that, like we call it your burn, but once you attach to that, the reason why you show up, and being an athlete myself, I'm like, yeah, I never wanted to let the team down. Like, it was worse to let them down than it was even myself, right? I mean, you have that.
Right.
And now with 3 kids, it's like, there's not a day that can go by that you know how to tap into that and go, okay, we need to show up. Forget me for a minute. Like, who else is counting on me, and who else is out there? And that's what I love, that you're playing big, the way that you continue to show up and what's next. And even as far as you've gone, I love that you've got this massive vision for, okay, now this is where we're going. This is who I'm bringing with me. And you've created the team. So, and as we wrap up, you've kind of gone over some of this, but is there anything else outside of what you're doing there? What's next for you? Because I love that you share more of not just Cardone Capital and flying and stuff, but like all the other stuff you're doing in life. Like, you're living life. And so when I define success, I think about people like yourself. That's like, man, you're living life. Like, you're not just making money over here, successful in business or these things. It's like, you're successful in life, right? So what's next?
I think you make a good point. Life is not about the money. It's about the experiences. For me, I'm going to continue to grow and scale and operate at a higher level, but it's also about giving back, right? The more social media and the more podcasts and the more news and the more this and the more that, the more questions that I get. And so it's really about giving back. Like, I've always been big at charity and helping, whether it's, the GC Foundation or or the Pilot Foundation, because for me, it's more about collaborations. Like, I don't want to start something by myself. It's like, how do I just continue to plug in and collaborate with more people who are doing something big? So, the pilot thing is always near and dear to my heart because aviation changed my life. Real estate is near and dear to my heart because I've been in it my whole life, and it's actually become fun. So it's those two things working together, flying jets upside down, flying a jet around the world, creating awareness for, this pilot program, creating awareness for, kids that need help, creating awareness for real estate deals, like all of those things all marry, because I am, to your point, I am living, and I am living for experiences. I'm not living for money, guys. I'm not living to get, oh, I want this, and oh, I want this. The material things, you can't take them with you, but the memories and the experiences you're going to have forever. So I look at life a little bit different. But what's next for me, to be very point and direct, is something bigger. And, I will always be surrounded with team members who, number one, have great ethics, great values. Number two, who always want something bigger. And then number three, how can I continue to give back and help people and continue to lift them up? So that's what I'm all about, man. The 10X thing isn't just about, the multiplier. It's about 10Xing everything in life. And that's what I do.
Dude, I love it. And you do it well. I will tell you, I appreciate you and how you showed up today, how you continue to show up even off the recordings and podcasts, because people need to hear your story. They need to be inspired. They need to see what's possible for them and know, I can go do that. Whatever I'm doing today, something in Ryan's story today has sparked an interest or even sparked a dream in you. And it's ignited that little bit of curiosity to go, what's next for me?
That's right.
Where should I be playing bigger? Yeah,
right.
Dude.
What's next, baby? What's next? What's next? That's the question. That's the question that everybody has asked. And typically the cycles are, 5, 7, 10 years. It's like, what's next? The burning inside of us. Let me just finish with this. Tim Ferriss, Grant Cardone, all these people that I used to watch, they broke it down very simple. When you ask yourself what's next, right? I was a career commercial airline pilot. I said, if I give this up and I go and take this risk with Grant Cardone, because it was a risk, right? Everybody thought it was crazy. Yeah. I looked at it and I mapped it out. I said, the worst thing is I can go back to doing what I'm currently doing. Yeah. And then what happened was I found this peace internally where I didn't have this anxiety. I didn't have this fear of like, I'm going to give this all up. No. You can't take away the 10,000 hours. You can't take away the check airman. You can't take away all the things that I built. But what I can, and what I am going to miss out on if I don't take that leap, is my potential. And, your potential, Grant always talks about this, your potential isn't the success that you're finding out in like every day. Your potential and success is actually the gap between your potential and where you currently are right now. The gap is actually, that's success. And so it's not like this little baby step or whatever it is, because we're all built for something bigger, greater, faster, stronger. It's just who's willing to take, it's actually not risk, who's willing to take that leap on yourself and having faith in yourself, knowing that you were born to do something bigger, and giving up what people deem comfort, which is actually not comfort. It's like a prison. And that's really what's helped me in my life, is it's like, okay, breaking things down, analyzing things, realizing that I'm not actually giving that up, but I'm setting myself up to step into the potential that I was set to do.
Yeah, that's powerful. I think that's one. And I have this belief, God's uniquely equipped everybody with experiences and talents and gifts and things. And it's like, man, it is your job and your responsibility to go distribute those and to serve people and make the world a better place. So you were doing that. This has been awesome. I know we could continue to jam much, much more, and we're going to have you back because there's a lot we weren't able to cover. But man, we dropped some big bombs on people today that I think they're going to want to go back and listen. And then my ask is always, something Ryan has shared today or we've discussed in collaboration that has caused you to want to take action, go take the action. You heard Ryan just say it, like you've got this gap that exists. Action has to happen for you to move forward. It's the same in sports, business, life. So Ryan, thank you for investing time with our audience and everybody there. I cannot wait to share this out with everybody and also to connect back up with you.
Well, thanks for having me. Anything I can do to help you out, I would love to collab. Anything we could do in the future, you got my cell. So I'm here to help.
And we're going to do it because I can tell even just the energy today exchange. I tell people, when people are destined to do things, and it's like, this is going to be something that I cannot wait to connect back up.
Your emoji is a rocket ship, Bry Guy.
That's it. Hey, Might put me on the rocket ship. We're going next level on that. So Ryan,
we might do that. We might do that.
Yeah. Well, guys, this has been another episode of Finding Your Competitive Edge. We discussed a lot here today, broke it all down. We're going to have the links in the show notes so you can make sure you connect up with Ryan and Cardone Capital and learn more about his journey. Make sure, guys, this is always my ask, is if we've left you better than when you started listening to this, we gave you an idea, inspired you, you've taken an action, drop us a review. Let us know how we did there. We can follow along with your journey and support you, and make sure to share this with your friends. That's how we get the word out and we inspire people. We will catch you guys on the next episode.